The Treasury Department delivered the details of the GREET model and what corn will qualify for ethanol production that would then qualify for sustainable aviation fuel. I think I got that all right. We'll talk through those details. Then it's time for this week's Farmer Forum with crop updates from Western Iowa and Central Illinois.
Live from the month of May via Farm Journal Studios, this is AgriTalk. This morning we begin with a conversation with the farm CPA Paul Neiffer and Mitchell Hora from Continuum Ag. Then it's our Farmer Forum with panelists Chad Leman and Kevin Ross. Directly following the news, Margie Eckelkamp from The Scoop joins. I'm handsome newsman Davis Michelson, and now here's the host of AgriTalk, Chip Laurie.
All right. Did you say Neiffer and Hora in the same segment?
Can you do it?
Well, I can do it.
Both at the same time, bro.
I think we can do it. That'll be awesome.
A couple of guys chock full of knowledge.
Yeah.
Standing shoulder to shoulder in Seg 2 here coming up.
About something that we have been waiting for quite some time, something that we have talked with Mitchell about a couple of times on the show, something that we've talked with Paul Neiffer about, a half a dozen times.
At length, yeah.
Yeah, on the show. And that is the adjustments to the GREET model, just how much of a path was cleared for corn-based ethanol into the sustainable aviation fuel market.
Yeah.
We're going to try to figure that out. And then for the Farmer Forum, Kevin Ross, past president of the National Corn Growers Association, is going to be on. Chad Leman, Illinois Pork. This is loaded, dude. Absolutely loaded up. Hey, big round of applause to Big Apple Joe Stackler for putting that together.
Attaboy, Big Apple.
You bet. You bet. This is good.
An
really
extra
good.
ration of sorghum for Big Apple today. Good work, Joe. Enjoy that.
His favorite breakfast cereal.
It is, yeah.
It really is. Yeah. Love it. Welcome to AgriTalk. I'm Chip. That is Davis.
Yep.
We got the announcement yesterday. There are some other announcements that are coming today regarding farm policy. You've got it in the news. Let's go ahead and hit it. What do you got, bud?
Sure thing. Before we bite off all of that, let's start with the weather.
Okay.
We'll start with something easy here. NWS weather outlook. Severe weather and excessive rainfall concerns for part of the central and southern plains and Mississippi Valley. Critical fire weather potential over portions of the southern high plains today. Cool and snowy in the northwest. Above average temperatures continue across much of the central and eastern United States. A little something for everybody. I think perhaps the worst of the storms have passed, Chip.
Well, there's a heck of a storm front down around Oklahoma City right now in eastern Oklahoma. North central, northeast Kansas also seeing a line of storms that tracks all the way down to Emporium. It's very active out there. And hey, you are going to be in a storm path again within the next 24 hours. That's just kind of the forecast that we're dealing with right now.
Well, this is what I get for mentioning it without checking the radar first. Look out, everybody. Look out, everybody. In other news, on Tuesday, the U.S. Treasury and IRS issued updated guidance on the Sustainable Aviation Fuel Tax Credit, aligning with the Inflation Reduction Act's goal to boost SAF production by providing incentives based on life cycle greenhouse gas reductions. This guidance includes the release of the now called 40BASF-GREET 2024 model designed to calculate these GHG emissions more accurately, incorporating new data and methodologies. Chip, the measures were met with general approval from the ag sector, but environmentalists are less enthusiastic. They're concerned a flood of ethanol-based SAF will hinder development of fuels that are even greener than the corn-based product. Senator Joni Ernst says the updated model would unfairly penalize certain domestic feedstocks used for the development of SAF, particularly corn and soybeans. Chip, I don't know if anybody's happy with this. Least of all me. You can't even pronounce that as an acronym. What are we doing?
40B SAF GREET 2024.
40B SAF GREET 2024.
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
I'm
yeah,
unhappy.
that's what it is. But the environmentalists are showing their true colors here. They don't want corn-based ethanol. They don't want corn-based anything.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want corn-based beef. They don't want corn-based pigs, poultry. They don't want, again, they don't want corn-based anything. But they do want SAF. They're going to ignore their biggest feedstock and even put roadblocks up in front of their biggest feedstock for SAF just because it's corn-based.
And here's the thing. The greenest green will never be green enough.
No.
The greenest green will never be green enough. I don't care what it is.
That's right.
Moving on. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken began another round of talks in Israel today as the U.S. seeks to ratchet up the pressure on Hamas to accept a ceasefire and hostage release deal. Blinken said the U.S. remains committed to addressing the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Chip, the slow-moving new farm bill is now on a far faster track. The House GOP new farm bill proposals were officially released in a 5-page summary released by the Ag Committee. The House Ag panel wants to mark up the chairman's mark on May 23rd. In the Senate, Ag Chair Debbie Stabenow later today will release a section-by-section summary of Senate farm bill proposals. We talked about this just a little bit yesterday with Brian Grady. Argentina's President Javier Milei has won approval from the lower house of Congress for a scaled-back version of a significant legislative package that aims to enhance his executive powers. The package, which now moves to the Senate, grants Milei expanded powers in administrative, economic, and energy sectors, including the authority to privatize nearly a dozen firms. That's interesting there. And finally, in other Argentina news, the oilseed sector workers lifted their 2-day strike late Tuesday, despite the lower house of Congress approving contentious reforms backed by President Milei, but opposed by some unions. Chip.
Yeah, just real quick, House Ranking Member David Scott from Georgia said, by insisting on poison pill policies about GT's mark on the Farm Bill. So that tells you just how little bipartisanship there is on this farm bill as it's moving forward. It's crazy. Thank you, Davis. Let's bring in Margie Eckelkamp, editor of The Scoop. Hey, how are you doing, Margie?
Hey, Chip, doing well this morning.
All right. This idea falls under the prepare for the worst category, doesn't it?
Well, it does. And I also wanted to bring it up maybe in a little bit more of a positive frame, because I know a lot of folks are getting some windshield time in the tractors right now. Okay. And so you're thinking about, well, what do I need to be doing once planting season is over? And this is really a takeaway relevant for both farmers and ag retailers. So The Scoop is the official magazine of the Ag Retailers Association. And every year I get to go visit the Retailer of the Year. And so many retailers of the year have shared this best practice. So this is the big takeaway for everybody. Have your local fire department come out and tour your facilities once a year, whether that be on your farm or your ag retail facility, so they know the overall layout as well as the types of products and materials you are storing on site. It is a preventative measure. It also helps build that familiarity if they have to come respond to an incident at your facility. So that is a best practice that so many of these retailers of the year have always highlighted when I go visit them. I do also want to share that the Retailer of the Year application is now available, and the deadline is the end of the next month. Go to thedailyscoop.com and click on awards.
All right, thedailyscoop.com. Excellent, Margie. You know, one other idea on that. After they come out for that visit, send them home with a nice donation for those volunteer fire departments out there.
And maybe a grilled pork chop.
There you go. Good stuff. Thank you, Margie.
Thanks, Chip.
Margie Eckelkamp, editor of The Scoop. We've got Paul Neiffer and Mitchell Hora next.
You're listening to
Holy
AgriTalk,
smokes,
where the conversation begins. Join us at 855-4-TALK-AG.
We couldn't end that commercial break fast enough.
The conversation already started.
I could hear the conversation happening in the green room. And we need to get these guys in here just as quick as we can before they give all their forget to talk about the good perspective that they were talking about before they got on the air here. Paul Neiffer, Farm CPA. How you doing, Paul?
I'm doing good. I'm in Kansas City today.
All right.
Kansas City!
Well, yeah, man. And Mitchell Hora, Continuum Ag. How you doing, Mitchell?
Hey, doing well. I'm actually in my office today, which is probably the first time that I've ever been on It's actually been in my office and not in my truck. So this is new for me.
It's either a truck or a tractor with you, Mitchell.
With the tractor.
Right. Yeah,
it's too rainy here. It's too wet and rainy here in Southeast Iowa to be in the tractor today.
Exactly, and it looks like we've got some more rain coming here in the next 24 hours. So, just stay patient, Mitchell. Stay patient. All right, let's jump right into this. Now, I want to give some of the details here. Now, the climate smart ag, the CSA corn that could qualify for ethanol production that would then qualify for sustainable aviation fuel production must implement these three practices on the same acreage: no-till farming, planting a cover crop, and using enhanced efficiency nitrogen fertilizer. Soybeans that would produce the CSA soybeans that would then qualify a bio-based diesel for conversion to sustainable aviation fuel must implement two of those practices, that being no-till farming and planting cover crops. Mitchell, from your experience, there's not a lot of ground out there that's going to qualify corn production or soybean production, is there?
No, not a lot. There's some, and we are actually developing. I think, I've had a variety of folks that are hitting me up saying, hey, I think I probably would qualify. We'll create a database of it, but no, very few that would qualify. And definitely you would not have an ethanol plant producing ethanol 100% from these CSA type of farmers. But I mean, nonetheless, at least we got some definitions around what those practices are. And we got some very good clarity as to how to document and verify that those practices happened. Right. The conclusion is it's basically punt on 40B. I mean, there's only one company in the country that's producing SAF from ethanol right now. It's LanzaJet down in Georgia. It's only a 10 million gallon facility. It's a pilot project facility, and they're using Brazilian ethanol right now, is my understanding. Now, maybe they could do some, ethanol from corn, sugarcane based ethanol. Yeah, maybe they could do a project doing some with U.S. corn. That was opened up yesterday, but this is very small scale. We need to continue to focus on 45Z, but nonetheless, we got to be documenting our practices, and at least they're recognizing that the farmers have a role to play. A big win.
Yep. All right. Neiffer, our friend Jim Wiesmeyer, Pro Farmer Policy Analyst, called it a dud for corn and soybean farmers. I think you agree with that.
I'm not even sure if it rises to the level of a dud. So, purely from a tax standpoint, as Mitchell had said, for the 23 crop and the 22 crop that could have been available for SAF this year, hardly any farmer, I don't think any farmer would meet the criteria in the regulations proposed regulations, essentially, that came out from the IRS yesterday. And even with that, they have a safe harbor that would only get, the SAF up to about a 53% efficiency level. My understanding is, sugarcane ethanol is at about 61%. So a SAF plant that has the ability to either buy sugarcane or by corn ethanol with the safe harbor is still at a disadvantage with corn ethanol versus sugarcane. So, this doesn't even rise to the level of a dud.
Okay. But there almost seems to be kind of a victory lap being taken by some, because, Mitchell, and you mentioned it, it's because it does recognize that farming practices do have an influence on the carbon intensity score. It is, I mean, is that enough out of this first take?
There was a couple major wins I think that we got yesterday. Number one, they didn't jack up indirect land use change like we thought that they were going to. So part of the CI score is attributed to this concept of indirect land use change. We thought that they were going to add a whole bunch of points to your carbon footprint, and they didn't. Massive win, and a good indicator for what's going to happen with 45Z. Then they said, hey, we're going to just have you check the box on these 3 practices for corn and 2 practices for beans in lieu of utilizing the GREET model. And that's laid out in the language. So they're saying we're going to punt on the GREET model for the on-farm practices. And if you check the boxes, we'll give you some point reduction for checking the boxes. So hopefully what's going to happen is they're at least saying we're going to include the on-farm practices, but hopefully for 45Z, which is due to start at the end of this year or on January 1 of the coming year, hopefully by then they'll update the feedstock calculator. We'll be able to not just check the box on the farming practices, but get the actual scores for the farmers. Yeah. But what was critical that was laid out in the language yesterday is what does it take to prove that you did those practices? Okay. That was a massive win. And that like in no-till, for example, it says you can do strip till. That qualifies. Yep. Okay. So like some of those details, big win. Yeah. And the path is still open, but for this year, to Paul's point, nobody's going to make anything on it in 2024. Right. And on 40B, punt on that. That's not really a thing. It's just an indicator of what's to come when we get more rules about 45Z. Placeholder.
You know, USDA Secretary Tom Vilsack called this a placeholder last week. You know, obviously he knew what was going to be in it. He's been a super supporter of biofuels. And he looked at it and said, well, it's not a win for 2024, but it's going to create opportunities for us once we get to the 45Z. But Neiffer, all this does is kick off another 7 months leading up to January 1, 2025 of lobbying and fighting over what the GREET model should be again for 45Z, right?
Yeah. They really need to get the GREET model out to us in the next couple of months so that farmers, know what they need to do. The ethanol and the SAF or whoever the SAF producer is knows what they need to do. You know, a farmer's not even going to deal with an SAF plant without having a contract that says, if I provide this corn to you, you're going to pay me a 50 cent or $1 premium per bushel. You know, if I'm a farmer, I'm not getting at least 50 or $1. I'm not interested in following all this CSA stuff. I mean, you look at the record keeping requirement, you look at the you have to make sure that the corn is, if it's going to an elevator, the elevator's got to follow the process. You know, if it's going to an ethanol as a temporary storage and then going to the SAF, they have to follow all the process. If you're not getting at least 50, 75, $1 premium, why am I as a farmer, and I am a farmer, why am I ever going to deliver my crop to this if I'm not guaranteed that upfront in writing based on what the specs finally are?
Right. You got the same take there, Mitchell?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
It lays out, though, to Paul's point. I'm with him. Hopefully, we get the GREET model before we start making those 2025 decisions. Right, meaning come harvest this year when we're doing the reduced tillage, the cover crop, any nitrogen fertilizer in the fall. But basically, I would take this still as an indicator that, if you want, even if we don't have the updated GREET model and we don't know your exact number or we don't know your exact premium, you better be banking on that. If you're going to check the box on these practices, now we know what rigor is going to be needed to check the box. So at least that's a big win. I was amazed that it laid out details about having a written plan and having it lays out the data that you got to have documented and stuff. So it's going to take some major record keeping, to Paul's point. And it's going to take some serious cash to make it worth it. But at least we know what we need to be thinking about.
Yeah, Mitch, who knows? Maybe they went to a Continuum Ag webinar or seminar there along.
I'm hoping so. I mean, it's what we're doing. It's
the record keeping. So
I mean, we're trying to really simplify it. I'm not super worried about it. We've been building the record keeping systems, the automation. We've been working with our third party verifier. We're ready to roll. But would love some more details. Because the ethanol guys need it too, as to is this actually going to work out the way that we want it to in regards to the actual dollars? Are we going to actually have some dollars flowing? Because in 40B, there's not going to be dollars flowing.
Exactly.
And part of the issue too, Mitchell, is if you haven't planted a cover crop for your 24 crop, which had to be done last year, you're not going to qualify under these new procedures.
That's right.
Right. That's why we need to know by harvest time, so that if we do want to plant a cover crop, we can get that all done. You guys are great. Mitchell Hora, Continuum Ag, Farm CPA, Paul Neiffer. Thanks, guys. Lucas Lentsch is the CEO of the United Soybean Board, and he is back on the Soy Checkoff Check-in to help us wrap up National Soy Foods Month. Lucas, great to talk with you again.
Chip, thanks for the opportunity.
Lucas, at the start of National Soy Foods Month, I had a conversation with Sarah Stelter, who talked about her role with the checkoff and what she does with the Soy Nutrition Institute, or SNI Global. So talk to me, Lucas, about the partnership with SNI Global and the importance of partnerships to USB in general.
You bet. Well, first off, farmers like Sarah provide the leadership and direction of United Soybean Board, and really are the vision behind even the Soy Nutrition Institute. If you go back to 2004, USB created the Soy Nutrition Institute, and it spun off a handful of years ago as a standalone entity. And the reason why that's so important today is that the body of work around human nutrition, it also translates into our reputation on behalf of U.S. soy, not only domestically, but globally. And so having a really solid understanding of the impact of soy on human health and nutrition really translates to confidence in our reputation in the marketplace.
Yeah. And SNI specifically here, because we are talking about National Soy Foods Month, what is the mission of SNI?
You know, SNI as an organization is out there to do the research to understand the impacts of soy on human nutrition. And if you think about free from claims in the food marketplace today, you know, like you hear or see a soy-free egg. Well, where does that come from? Because we know the poultry, number one consumer of soybean meal is that of poultry and pork and other animal feedstuffs. But at the end of the day, is there a misunderstanding of what soy and the impact of soy in the dietary food chain, if you will? And so that's part of the SNI, is to talk about the role, the impact could be on human health, and it's a nugget that's worth talking about.
Gotcha. We are talking with USB CEO Lucas Lentsch here on the Soy Checkoff Check-in. Lucas, soybeans have a variety of uses beyond food. They're highly desirable in livestock feed and thousands of non-food uses, but nutrition is a top priority. Tell me about how the checkoff is helping to address food security globally.
Organizations like the United States Soybean Export Council or the World Initiative for Soy and Human Health that is under the purview of the American Soybean Association, those organizations are out in the world really opening up markets through that of WISH, helping emerging markets that really it's just human nutrition at a very basic sustenance level. Having that kind of relationship out in an emerging market is huge. It creates the soybean consumer of tomorrow and really provides security for today. The other part of that is the unique handoff that can take place with our U.S. Soybean Export Council, the folks that do the bulk, the big lifts on our behalf, on behalf of American soybean farmers in the export market.
Excellent. WISH, talk to me just a little bit more about that, because I think not a lot of people understand exactly what is going on with WISH and the services that it provides around the globe.
Yeah, and well, back to your opening question around partnerships.
Yeah.
Think of World Initiative for Soy and Human Health as a strategic partnership that we fund. It's overseen, if you will, by the American Soybean Association. It's one of their operating entities, and it's out there in the markets that are trying to have enough nutrition to get through the day, let alone the week. And, really helping folks understand the role that soy can play in that space, all the way through to even raising your own protein by way of aquaculture.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Hey, Lucas, before we wrap up this Soy Checkoff Check-in, it's that time of the year. Seeds going in the ground. What's your message to farmers as another growing season gets up and running?
One of the most important things this time of year is, number one, thank you for what you do to provide national security through our food security. But really the ask is also to always keep that safety top of mind. Your families need you, your communities need you, and we all need you. We all depend on what you do for our country. Be safe out there. Take a minute for safety. Talk through your contingencies if ever needed, and just know where your safety equipment is at and follow those procedures properly. But most importantly, we have a safe and fed country because of what you do, and we appreciate it each and every day.
Good stuff, Lucas. Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Don't forget, you can learn more about the soybean checkoff at unitedsoybean.org. That is Lucas Lentsch, CEO of the United Soybean Board. That wraps up this Soy Checkoff Check-in. Now, let's get back to AgriTalk.
Opinions expressed on AgriTalk do not necessarily reflect the views of Farm Journal Broadcasting, affiliate stations, or sponsors. On your favorite radio station or your preferred digital device, AgriTalk is live every weekday.
Welcome back to AgriTalk. I'm your host, Chip Flory. Glad that you are with us on this Wednesday morning for the Farmer Forum. Let's get the guys in here. Kevin Ross from Western Iowa. Kevin, it's good to talk with you again. How are you?
No, not too bad, Chip. Glad to be on.
Good. I'm glad you're here, man. The storms this past weekend, did you stay clear of them?
We did at our farm, and where we sit, we could see. I mean, there was a point in time where I saw 5 different tornadoes at once. 3 to the south of me and 1 to the west, and the one that hit Minden was basically forming right over my grain bins, and just an absolute amazing monster, just a mess. But glad to be here, and fortunate for ourselves, but feel a lot for the community. A lot of folks with a lot of damage and livelihoods that are turmoil.
Yeah. Well, that area, just like most areas in the Midwest, are going to pull together and get things cleaned up as quickly as possible. What are you hearing as far as the progress goes on that? Is the job getting done?
Well, I'm actually in Minden as we speak. It had been up here for the weekend, Saturday, Sunday, and parts of Monday, and it just it's been a amazing experience to see the amount of people who do come together. A ton of credit to the city officials, the FEMA folks, the state. I gotta have had a lot of folks reach out from the agricultural side, from our state IDOLs there, as well as USDA Rural Development have been back and forth with some emails there, and I know they've all been in touch with city officials here too, and they're just trying to figure out what all they need to do from for the surrounding area to not only help with cleanup, but even think about the rebuild in the future here.
Yeah, man, what a tough situation out there, Kevin. It does not surprise me that you're in the middle of it. That is for sure. The one thing that I noticed from experiencing similar cleanup activities is for days it feels like you can't notice that any progress is even being made, and then all of a sudden it's there. You can see that things are starting to come together. It can get a little frustrating. Let everybody know that we're thinking about them and praying for them and their safety and the strength to get this job done over there. Good on you, man. All right.
Yeah.
Yep. Let's bring in Chad Leman over in Illinois. Chad, how you doing, buddy?
Good morning, Chip. Thanks for having me on the show today.
Yep, glad that you're here. What's the spring season look like to you out there in Illinois?
Well, after just listening to Kevin's report, I will certainly not complain about our weather. I think we'll be very thankful for what we have. We've got a really good start to soybean planting here. The last couple of weeks, it's crazy. Everybody puts soybeans now in ahead of corn, as I'm sure you're well aware of. And I would say, locally, we're probably looking at 2/3 completion on soybeans and just a 5 to 10% start on corn. So off to a good start. Pretty wet right now, and everybody's sidelined, but off to a good start.
Okay, good deal. Good deal. How much rain did you guys pick up? You're not hurting for moisture at all now, are you?
No, we're not. We're hurting for some dry, sunny weather.
Yeah.
We had over 4 inches over the weekend, spread out over a few days, and I don't think any wheels will turn this week, especially with more rain in the forecast for Friday. But you're making me break my promise to not complain about the weather after hearing what you're dealing with out there in Western Iowa.
It's all right. That's all right. I kind of push those buttons every now and then, buddy. Sorry about that. So, all right, Kevin, this decision or the announcement from the Treasury Department on the corn-based ethanol and its pathway to sustainable aviation fuel. We got it yesterday. Wiesmeyer said it's a dud. Neiffer said it doesn't even qualify as a dud. Mitchell Hora said, it basically doesn't mean anything for 2024, but it means everything for 45Z in 2025. It doesn't seem like this held the answers that it didn't hold the answers that I wanted to see. That's for sure. What about you?
Yeah, I think that's probably a good way to state it, Chip. I think everybody has been looking for definition behind the 45Z and 45Q and all these things that you're trying to figure out how to plan as businesses around these things. And I've been involved in these for a long time, as you well know, and it comes to, the biodiesel tax credit and things like that get to go up and down where they couldn't, give you certainty for years on these things. And so it's not a shock to see the way the federal government is dealing with these things in biofuels, but at the same time, they make it awfully difficult for you to plan your business and plan the future of, what these investments, these significant investments that people are trying to make for the future of, for ethanol and the sustainable aviation fuel in general, whether that's ethanol or biodiesel going into that. And it's just, it just kind of, it's, I want to say par for the course almost for the federal government, it seems like.
Well, yeah. Yeah, and not only that, but it's like Davis had in the news. He said that environmentalists are less enthusiastic. They are concerned a flood of ethanol-based SAF will hinder development of fuels that are even greener than the corn-based product. They want the SAF, Kevin, but they don't want it to be corn-based. That is the message that I'm getting loud and clear from all of this. What about you?
That's what it kind of appears in some fashions. And I think when you see, this particular administration in there, obviously you're going to have more of an environmental bent to, or at least environmental ear, I guess I would say, giving that to those groups. And I think that's a failure. We've seen that happen before. And it doesn't necessarily even matter which party's in there from time to time on these things. It kind of it's gone both ways on that. And it's very disappointing to see that, because if anything about the liquid fuels market, it seems like reality doesn't always match what their idealism is. And the fact is, if you're going to be in the liquid fuels market and the renewable liquid fuels market, corn ethanol is here to stay, and corn ethanol is not going anywhere. And in the SAF market, it needs to be, if they want renewable, green aviation fuel. There will not be enough other feedstocks across the globe, to make this happen, even if we want to do it here just in the U.S. And if you look at Europe and other markets, it's just not possible without corn-based ethanol being converted into that. So you'd like to see reality set in a little bit. Yeah,
exactly. That is exactly right. I'm thinking to myself, they better figure out how to hold their nose and take a drink of ethanol, because if they don't, there's not a big enough a supply to get to the goals that they have for SAF without that pool of corn-based ethanol out there. Chad, your take on this announcement and where all of this is headed. What are your thoughts?
I don't think I can shed any more light than what you guys have. But I mean, as I look at, depending on what this looks like starting in 2025, if it's going to require cover crops and no-till production along with efficient fertilizer, there's obviously some pretty serious yield implications with no-till and cover crop, at least in our geography. And so to offset that and to incentivize farmers to grow corn that meets those production standards is certainly going to require more than just a little premium. I don't think for 2024 there's going to be near the supply of anything that would amount to anything.
Right. Yeah. And you said it, man. I mean, I don't know, Kevin. Out in the hills of Western Iowa, the cover crop use it's expanding, isn't it?
Yeah, it is expanding. But it definitely adds levels of management that not everybody is prepared for, and I'd say myself included in that. I mean, you don't have not everybody has the hours, the manpower, let alone some of the equipment that it takes. And I've had mixed success with flying things on, but there's it definitely is increasing in acres, and there are some certainly some benefits to that, but as well we do know that there's plenty of risks, and I can't argue too much with the things that are going on, to look at those things and research them. But at the same time, it just doesn't, these things don't happen overnight.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. Exactly right. Okay, you guys, we're going to put, let's call a close to that part of the conversation. We've got a hard break coming up that we've got to get to. But when we come back, Chad, I want to talk animal health with you, because the H5N1 in the dairy cattle is bringing animal health right back into the spotlight, and the biosecurity needs that are in place out there. Are they enough? Are they enough? We're going to have that conversation with Chad Leman and Kevin Ross here on the Farmer Forum on AgriTalk.
When news breaks, the newsmakers talk about it on AgriTalk with Chip Flory.
Welcome back to the Farmer Forum here on AgriTalk. We're talking with Kevin Ross over in Western Iowa, Chad Leman in Illinois. Okay, let's hop right to this animal health issue. It's obviously back in the headlines with the H5N1 bird flu showing up in dairy cows. Chad, as a livestock producer, first things first. Take me back to when you first heard that. Okay, we've got dairy cows that are carrying this virus. When you first heard that, what were your thoughts?
Well, you thought it as well. At least it's dairy cows and not pigs.
Yeah.
And so I was glad about that. But you in this livestock sector, you're always sort of planning for these black swan events anymore. I mean, it's always something that's a little off the wall that you didn't expect, that are going to rattle and shake the markets a little bit. And we never, I don't know, Chip, had you ever heard of this? I mean, had you ever had any concern about this before hearing that? I didn't.
No. And the reason that that I'm willing to say that as forcefully as I am is because, Chad, the researchers that we've talked to were completely blindsided by H5N1 making the jump over to bovines. It's this was a complete surprise to the industry and to the animal health industry, I think, Chad.
Oh, for sure. I mean, as I corresponded with a couple of our swine vets after this, and asking like what biosecurity protocols are we going to change at sow farms or what are we going to do differently? They were caught off guard as well.
Yeah.
There's a number of sow farms that, are using surface water, whether it's lakes or whatever, ponds to water sows. And of course, all that water is treated before coming into the barns, but nonetheless, it's certainly an added concern that we need to make sure that the workers on the farms are not overlooking as we see this take shape.
Yep. That's exactly right, Kevin. It's another. Go ahead, Chad.
Sorry about that. I was just going to say it. Then this news sort of rattles the hog markets, and you see like July hog futures up and down, trading kind of a range of 102 to 110, depending on whether there was no news for the day, which is good, or whether there's bad news, which is not good. And so we certainly see the markets a little shaky because of it.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's no question about it. Now, the cattle market has shown, I think, much more sensitivity to it than what the hog market has. But you're right, Chad. There is sensitivity to the stories and the headlines that are coming out there. Kevin, if it's not one thing, it's another, isn't it?
Yeah, that's kind of the way this one. It seems to me like there's always something that's popping up, and it takes me back to the days of the cow that killed Christmas, and the comments by a famous person
Oprah.
that I won't name.
Oprah, I'll say it.
Chip, come on now. That caused a lot of issues in our markets, because of BSE and those types of things, and this is one of those things that I tell you, it seems to me like we all know at some point it'll blow over, and we also need to have some confidence in our animal health experts on these things to make sure we get through this and sort it out. It's disappointing that it hits the markets like that and certainly affects livelihoods. But at the same time, we got to make sure we address these kinds of issues and move forward. That's what we're in the business for, is to make sure we're producing that safe and healthy food supply, and hopefully we can be transparent about it.
Right. Okay. So the chairman's mark on the Farm Bill, Kevin, is out. And there's a 5-page summary, and it looks all very straightforward. I don't think that there's any surprises in there from what Chairman Thompson had indicated. But I think there's a little bit of a surprise in the reaction that we're getting from the ranking member, Scott. Basically said that there's some poison pill items in the chairman's mark that's going to go up for committee mark on May 23rd. Again, if it's not one thing, it's another when it comes to this Farm Bill, Kevin.
Yeah, this one seems like it's getting toyed with more than maybe some of the past. That I'm not sure why, because it seemed that not that long ago that this was going to be a rather fast one to potentially get done, and seems like there's always the politics that for some reason always have to get played instead of thinking about what's best for the producers and really in this case the world of agriculture. And I know that's the game that it is, but and have been very close to that for many years. But man, it's frustrating sometimes, Chip. That's for sure.
It certainly is. Chad, what's your take on this Farm Bill? I'll call it progress, because it seems to have moved from a slow track to a fast track now, where it's going to be out in front of the public in a big way.
Yeah, I've been really paying close attention to it because, as you and I have talked before, this is the best vehicle for some kind of fix to Prop 12 for hog producers.
Yes.
And I was in D.C. a few weeks ago meeting with our Illinois contingent, expressing to them just how important a fix is for Prop 12, not only for hog producers, but then going forward for other commodities as well. And so I'm hopeful here before Memorial Day that we have something to look at. what it appears like right now, at least as of this week.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Yeah, I hope you're right, and I hope we can get into some more of the details and start to find some consensus rather than this poison pill talk that we're hearing. You guys are great. Thank you so much. Be safe out there. Good luck with the cleanup over there in Western Iowa, Kevin. Thanks, man.
Appreciate it. Keep these
All
guys in
right.
your prayers.
Yep, absolutely. Chad, thanks. We'll talk
Thanks,
to you
Jeff.
soon.
Appreciate
You
it.
bet. Kevin Ross in Iowa, Chad Leman in Illinois. Come back this afternoon. We've got a conversation coming with Dwayne Bussey from Bolt Marketing.